Even when school-wide expectations and classroom expectations have been defined, taught, encouraged, and acknowledged, some students will still experience learning errors. This section showcases the importance of developing school-wide procedures to correct these learning errors. In this section, we will discuss the practices needed to ensure consistency in responding to problem behaviors. These practices are having clearly defined problem behaviors, making clear distinctions between staff, classroom, and office-managed behavior, establishing a continuum of procedures for correcting problem behavior, and establishing data decision strategies for repeat offenses. It is challenging to help each person in the school building have an understanding of what each problem behavior is. For example, we all have different perspectives as to what disrespect means based on our opinions and experiences. All staff members must agree and exclusively define and label each problem behavior and come to a consensus on that definition. After that, the problem behavior must have specific examples attached to it. What does disrespect look like? What are observable, measurable behaviors that are disrespectful? Doing this will bring unity and consistency when addressing these types of problem behaviors. We ultimately want all students to be treated fairly, and to do this, staff members must agree on and understand the definition of each problem behavior, how to teach appropriate replacement behaviors, and how to address problem behaviors consistently across all school settings. It is important for teachers to understand when it is appropriate to send a student to the office for a behavior error and what the procedure is to do so. Teachers also need to know what problem behaviors they are empowered to manage in the classroom. The form used for office discipline referrals should not be the only consequence. Teachers should not say, "I'm going to write you up," and expect that to solve the behavior problem. The form used should be considered a data collection tool. Schools should ensure that expected behaviors have been taught, encouraged, and acknowledged before problem behavior warrants a trip to the office. In planning, schools should consider the procedures for behaviors that might be a crisis situation. A continuum of discipline procedures needs to address behaviors that might have levels of intensity. For example, inappropriate language, such as saying "shut up" or "you're stupid," might be managed in the classroom. Abusive language or aggressive language, such as cursing and threatening, might require an administrator's support. Creating a tiered school-wide system of behavior interventions and supports is just as important as creating tiered academic supports. When students experience learning errors in academic subjects, we want teachers to have a menu of sorts to choose appropriate interventions. We want the same type of framework for behavior errors. Not every consequence will work with every student and/or with every behavior. If we are addressing the function of the behavior, we will need options. The system must make sense to all stakeholders. The response to problem behavior should match the intensity of the behavior. For example, students fighting might be suspended, but a student who is tardy might only need a conference and to make up his time. All teachers have to commit to the agreed upon plan. For example, teachers could vote on what being on time to class looks like. Being on time to class could be seated in class when the bell rings, or in the classroom when the bell rings, or near the classroom when the bell rings. When the staff members vote, the majority of the votes is the new rule. So if the majority of the staff members voted that being on time to class meant that you were in the classroom when the bell rings, then the staff members who did not vote that way should commit to the policy and follow it consistently. Traditional consequences have been ineffective because they were inconsistently applied, were a poor match for the problem behavior, and provided no opportunity for students to learn and practice a replacement behavior. The faculty and staff members need to understand that behavior serves usually one of two functions: to gain something or to avoid something. For example, if a student wants to avoid class and skip school, she will probably skip again if her only consequence is out of school suspension. That will reinforce her behavior. Behavior problems should be thought of as learning errors. If a student was struggling in reading or math, we would reteach, practice, and model. We need to do the same thing with behavior errors. Planning our responses in advance is important because when problem behavior is occurring, we are more likely to react with an emotional, biased response. It is often difficult to make the best decisions when those emotions and biases are involved. If you have been working with a student on reducing aggression and they have cut their levels of aggression in half, you would have a different response to one incident of aggression than you would with a student who has never hit anyone. Both students need a consequence, but those consequences might be different. Matching the intensity of the problem behavior's consequence to the problem behavior means that students might not receive ISS or in-school suspension for chewing gum. We also need to make sure that we are using the least intrusive intervention first, because this allows students to make corrections before they get way off course. This is a comparison of the difference between the goals and purposes of logical consequences and traditional punishment. A continuum of responses to problem behavior should exist in the classroom as well as school-wide. Early stage responses, which can be delivered without disturbing instruction, may include eye contact, gestures, moving closer to the student, reminders to the whole class about the expectations, or simply placing a hand on the student's desk. Middle stage responses require additional planning and may include things like restitution, loss of privileges, time owed, and time out. Each school should determine what its plan will be for responding to students with patterns of problem behavior. Instead of just saying 4 minor behavior problems make a major office referral, what will the plan be for responding to these repeat minor behaviors? And what in that plan will provide effective logical consequences? Many schools develop a flowchart indicating where and when and how different behaviors should be managed. Please note that patterns of minor problem behaviors need to be addressed, but they do not necessarily need to be addressed in the office or with a referral. Classroom teachers can develop plans to address patterns of minor problem behaviors. Patterns of minor classroom behaviors need to be addressed before sending the student to the office. This requires good data collection that is discreet and preserves the child's dignity. No matter what type of data collection we use, we need to ensure that there are logical consequences provided that can help change behavior over time. Instead of saying, "that kid is always on red," or "that kid is always in trouble," we need to be able to use our data to design effective behavior interventions. This is an example from a school to gather classroom behavior incident data. The teacher kept this on a clipboard on her desk and recorded behaviors quickly and discreetly. Even without entering this information into a special software program or Excel file, the teacher could quickly see if one student was developing a pattern of minor behaviors, or if there was a pattern of minor behaviors at one time of the day for multiple students, or even if he or she was using the same type of consequence every time. It is important to remember that consequences and punishment are not the same thing. Effective responses to problem behavior will help to change that behavior over time by teaching replacement behaviors and providing practice opportunities. Logical interventions are designed to remedy the problem while also maintaining student dignity.